So I'm going to go ahead. Sorry, I was pushing record. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody. Our team here is, well, I'm Amber. I am the Assistant Director of Online Enrollment Management here at Online Learning. But my first commitment at WSU was the Online Retention Specialist. So I was working with a lot of online students in student success to connect them with resources. So that's really where my heart's at. We have Chad. He's the Assistant Director of Admissions. Hi, Chad.
Hello, welcome.
So if you have any questions about admissions, feel free to put that in the comments too. He's here and he'll take care of you. We have Pam O'Neill, who's the Associate Director of Office of Adult Learning.
Yes. Thank you. Glad to be here today.
Welcome. I believe we have, let's see, Noelle's online, she is our online enrollment and marketing specialist. She is my partner in crime. So she's going to be working the background and checking the comments. If you guys have any questions, she's our backup. So in order to...
Wait, you have me.
No, I'm getting to it.
Oh, okay.
In order to accurately address all of our concerns about technology and online classes and online programs, I have invited Dr. Carolyn Speer, and she was recently promoted to the Director of Office of Instructional Resources. So she's basically a ninja online. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hello.
So I thought I'd kind of, because it's casual, I thought we'd kind of ask our own questions if we had any from our students. So if you girls have any questions, go ahead and put those out in the chat. And if not, we can get started with our own list that we started that we've heard students had struggles with. So let me pull up that list. Okay, so Carolyn, can you give us a little background about your life at WSU and your journey?
Well, sure. Hi, I came to Wichita State from Friends University, where I was, I started my career really, really young, teaching in an adult program, in fact, that I was too young to apply for. So I have been working with adult students for my entire career, which is about 30 years now, and 30 years this year. And so I'm pretty familiar with the various struggles that adult students, returning adult students, and also first-time adult students. We use that term, returning adult students, as if that's like everybody, but a lot of adult students are first-time. I've been working with that population of folks for a long time. I've also taught and worked in Blackboard since 1999. So if you're having a Blackboard problem or you have a concern about Blackboard, it would be difficult, not impossible to stump me, but very difficult. So that's really, I think, my role here. I am, as the Director of the Office of Instructional Resources, I help to train teachers how to teach.
Great. Well, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for coming in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with some of the questions that we have heard just as staff on campus from our students. What would you say are the most healthy habits for students who are enrolled in an online class, online program, or just taking a class during the pandemic and they're meeting through Zoom? That was to you, Carolyn.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for them to provide questions. What are the questions that we have had most often? Is that what your question is?
What would you say are the best practices?
I was not taking that in as for me. I'm so
You're
sorry.
Fine. This is totally casual, so you can't mess up anything. But I thought that we'd talk about what are some best practices for students that are newly taking online classes, or maybe they're not taking an online class, but their class is on Zoom now because of the pandemic. What would you say recently are some of the best practices for students to be successful?
I think they kind of fall into two categories. On the one hand, you have the things that you need to do for yourself to deal with the ways in which, especially if you got put online when you weren't intending or didn't want to be there,
Right.
dealing with dealing with the grief over that. Imagining a particular, it's scary enough to be new at something. It's scary enough to be starting something, and then to have it change on you in a way that you didn't have control of. That's a lot to ask of people emotionally. And so I think just paying attention and honoring the fact that that takes an emotional toll is important. I see it a lot in my students. I teach also, and I teach fully online. I have 3 classes this semester, and I've noticed it in my students' assignments, regularly talking about emotional things, about, just their interaction with the class, even when not asked. I mean, even when it's really not part of the assignment, it still comes up. So I think that that's probably first and foremost, having a way to think through that, to recognize that that's normal. That doesn't make it less, but it is shared. So
it is shared. I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of people just think that they're the only one out there struggling or not connecting, and that's not the case.
That's absolutely not the case. It's also not the case that being an online student means not having a sense of connection. That's also not the case. But if you came in with a set of expectations, that was one set of expectations, you prepared for that mentally and perhaps by reviewing things and talking to people, and then you have something change on you, that loss is significant. Being a fully online student can be a super rewarding and exciting way to go to school. I really enjoy my fully online students and have taught only online for a number of years now, and prefer it. But if that wasn't what you're expecting, that's hard.
Yeah.
Then
it's our reality.
Yeah, right. That's our reality. I mean, that's our reality. That's how you buy groceries. I mean, that's it's so invaded so many parts of our lives. And from where we're standing right now, I keep saying, if you look at somebody now as an adult, or maybe a teenager or something, you look at their baby picture, you can see in their baby picture what they became, but you couldn't, when you looked at the baby, know what they were going to look like, right? Yes. And we can see in where we are right now, that there will be things that our future is going to look like this in some ways, but we don't really know what characteristics about right now are going to stay. Right. So I would, if you have anxiety about that and about what the future is, going to bring, I would just try to do things to deal with that anxiety, because we just don't know. And students have a lot of ability to control their own future in most cases. Right? Like right now, this got decided for us, but that is atypical. That is not typical. So that's the first piece of advice I would say. The second piece of advice is your standard stuff. These are real classes. You need to allot time for them. Amber mentioned being a first generation student. I was myself a traditional undergraduate, and I wasn't a first generation student, but when I went back to school to get my doctorate degree, I was an adult. And I was married and I had kids, and I did the best I could, but I found time like in the middle of the night. I cut time out of my sleeping, out of my personal time. And you have to be real careful with that kind of behavior, right? That's not scalable long-term. So you need to try to think about ways that you can fit it into your life, because classes take time.
Right. It's like, what are you going to cut out to put in?
Yeah, potentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is it? You can't find time, you have to make time.
Right.
So that's good. We had something from Amira. Oh. Okay. just wanted to make sure about that I wasn't missing something that you guys needed. So those are my 2 pieces of advice. Recognize that you're not alone, even though many of us are suffering individually, right? But that doesn't mean that that's unusual, or that that's a sign that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or that would be something that's beneficial to you. That's not evidence of that.
Okay. I'm glad you touched on that, because I feel like a lot of people have anxiety. For example,
sure.
My mom, who's, she would be an older student, but one time she was sitting downstairs on our family computer crying alone. I came downstairs and I was like, Mom, what are you doing? She couldn't figure out how to go through her online modules. And I said, Mom, you can't just sit here and be by yourself. Like there's so many people that will help. And that's kind of what we're doing, is that this is kind of awareness that if you guys ever have questions, that you can reach out to us anytime, any of us, and we'll direct you to where you need to be. So we don't ever want you crying in a corner in a basement by yourself. So with that said, Carolyn, what would you say students nowadays for online classes, what are their basic needs? Like what do they need for the very basic to be successful in an online class?
You need a way to get on the internet, and you need a way to get on the internet that is a way that you yourself like to use. So that I'm in my 50s. I'll just out my age. So that I came up at a time when computers were great big clunking things that sat on your desk. That's what a computer was. And I still, when I sit down with my computer, even though my computer is a laptop, I still have that kind of setup with the big monitor and the desk and a real keyboard, because those are the things that are comfortable for me. I think many of your instructors are going to assume that that is what is comfortable for you, but it doesn't have to be what's comfortable for you. It is important, however, that what you have is something that's comfortable for you. And if you don't have an access to a computer, then there are some opportunities potentially to get something through Wichita State. So keep that in mind as well. But what we know from looking at our Blackboard statistics is that a lot of people come to class in Blackboard from their phone. A lot as in like 40%. Yeah, a lot. And if that's technology that's available to you, that you're comfortable with, don't let anybody techno shame you on that. It might be real difficult when it comes time to using certain software to make that work for you long term, but that doesn't mean that that's a thing that you need to give up, all the time, forever. I think that we just need to be, as a group, ourselves on this side, a lot more open to the fact that people create papers by dictating them into their phone. That's typical behavior now. If that's not you and you do want a setup, then you need a setup that can talk to the internet, right? You need probably going to benefit from having a webcam of some kind. Although again, keeping in mind that a backup is a smartphone is a backup webcam. So if you have a computer that doesn't have one, but you're sometimes in a situation where you do, using a phone to call into a Zoom meeting, to call into a Teams meeting, that's legitimate, and other people do that. That will not make you look weird. So it's helpful to have a webcam, but if that's your only webcam, don't worry about it. Having a microphone is obviously really helpful also. But also, again, people forget that these things are first and foremost microphones to the outside world. So if you have a smart device, then you probably have one. You need an internet connection, and if it's possible, a broadband internet connection is better, because it makes it less frustrating, but it's not typically absolutely required.
How do you feel about tablets, Carolyn?
Tablets?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm somebody who really doesn't
I don't use them.
I don't ever like to talk about something that I don't have experience with. And so I will get questions about tablets from instructors who wanted to use them. And finally, we were able to use some COVID money, and I recently acquired an iPad. And I've been trying to force myself to use it for everything just to get accustomed to it. Again, I think if that's what you are accustomed to and you're comfortable with, it seems pretty banging to me. I really like that iPad, but it's a mental shift for me. And I do think that some of that's just age related, not from a technical ability perspective, but from a technical expectation perspective. I expect technology to have keys I can push down and stuff. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge for me, but I'm learning it and I like it.
Cool. I think it's also important to mention you need to use things that you're comfortable with, but you also need to find a space that you're comfortable with. Like,
Oh yeah.
for instance, for me, I have to have a little bit of background noise. So back before the pandemic, it was ideal for me to set up at Starbucks or a coffee shop and be able to just zoom in and focus, but have background noise. And my other peers just wanted to go to the library where it was like dead silent. And that was their spot. That's where they did their writing. So it's kind of good to be aware of where you're comfortable at.
Yeah, I'd also say something about that from the point of view of adult students. I personally found that challenging when I was an adult student and I had kids running around, and I felt guilty about being in school and not being with them all the time so I wouldn't set boundaries for myself when I needed to study at first because I already was dealing with guilt. And what I came to understand and what I would share with others is that learning how to set those boundaries, learning how to say, I need this because education is important to other people, sets an example for them, which is much more valuable than we often give it credit for in the moment. So now my kids, who are now both grown, went on and did go to college and are good about talking about their own needs. And I like to think that it was because I learned how to do that and model that for them, that
For sure,
that they were able to take that as a
I want
lesson.
to jump in real quick on that, Carolyn. I'm working on my dissertation and talking to first generation adult learners. And in the literature, they will tell you that having children can be a barrier to getting your degree. And what I'm finding when I talk to these adult learners is that, kind of like you said, they don't see them as a barrier. They see that as a catalyst, or this is why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting down, one of them, I think, said, my children get to see me work on my homework, and what an example I am providing for them. So as far as talking about that, you're absolutely right. I don't think there should be any shame in feeling like you are being a bad example to your children by going back to school. It's actually a good thing to do.
Or
so thank you
not
for mentioning that.
time with them. My little sister, I would take her everywhere. I'd be like, we're going to the library, we're going to sit and we're going to do it together. So I think it's definitely a strength.
Yeah.
That
So
having been said, there's also no shame in feeling anxiety about it. So it's normal. It's normal to feel bad and maybe feel guilty in the moment. Again, that's a shared reality. It is felt individually, but it is shared truth.
Good. I'm glad we touched on that. I just feel like we all do this and we all feel so alone, but we're kind of all going through the same thing. We're definitely not alone. Let's see. What are some of the other questions?
Do you want to touch on Amira's question real quick?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the question.
So she had asked about like resources for online students who suffer from anxiety with their schoolwork. So maybe advice from all you knowledgeable, experienced people.
For anxiety, well, I know that you can do an accommodation and have
That's true.
with disability services, and that will not necessarily, you don't have to have an interpreter or anything, but it does give you like extended time for due dates. You can have a couple more days for your assignments, or you can have a little bit more time on your quizzes. It's really awesome to take advantage of that. I struggle with anxiety too. And the thing that helped me was just blocking out time in my calendar and planning everything, blocking out time for personal stuff, blocking out time for school. Like to me, it was like a job, and I blocked out this time for my job that I had to clock into and do. So that kind of helped me with my anxiety.
It looks like you put down on there, Noelle, the resources available through CAPS, Counseling and Prevention Services. And thank you for doing that, because I didn't know that those were available. And looks like you're partnering with them to provide some more resources. So
Actually started yesterday. So we are going to start sharing more stuff and kind of collabing with them as well.
I would also say one of the things I did with my students in the spring, so a year ago, when we came back and everything was changed, I gave my students an opportunity to not do a final presentation or a big paper thing in my class, and instead take a mindfulness class through LinkedIn Learning. And I did that because I believe so strongly in the power of some of those habits that are learnable habits. So our Counseling and Prevention Center link that you have there will take you to some mindfulness training, which is available at Wichita State. I can put a link in. As a Wichita State student, you have a free LinkedIn Learning account. Those are not associated with Wichita State. It's just that because you are at Wichita State, you have the availability to go do these, which otherwise would cost money. And so there's a website that you can go and you can log in using your credentials. And once you do that, you can always go there and you can look at their educational opportunities. All of them are online. They're all self-paced. All of them are free to you. And they have some excellent trainings on mindfulness, and that just those habits of taking a moment, just letting that go, just letting that take its time to drain away. That's a skill that is absolutely learnable. So I'll put a link in the chat to the information about LinkedIn Learning, and then put the name of the course that I think is particularly useful in there. But the CAPS resources also contain those kinds of resources, and all of that is free.
Thank you, Carolyn. That's neat. I really like that.
My students, about half my students did it.
Cool.
Everybody should be doing it. They have some really cool playlists, so definitely check that out. Did anybody have any other questions that I didn't see in the?
I've gone through them. I don't see any more.
Okay.
Neighbor.
Cool. Carolyn, you did mention that if a student didn't have access to just the basics like Wi-Fi or a device, what all can WSU do to pitch in and help and support?
As a concept, right. And I'll put a link for that in chat too. So we have a remote learner support page that addresses technology needs. When we went to remote, and as we took on this, on a semester by semester basis, our ITS folks, our tech people, acquired Chromebooks and also devices that people call them hotspots. These are called MiFis. So if you see that MiFi, and it is personalized Wi-Fi or a hotspot, which they just make available to students who need it in order to, because they don't have technology for their classes. And I'll put a link to how to sign up for something like that too. There's also, of course, COVID support, financial support request forms that can be put in to request money to purchase items to support your learning or other things because of COVID.
Very cool.
So I put the link to LinkedIn Learning in here. I'm going to go get that course, and then I will put in the link for devices. So that's coming. Give me a minute.
Great. I also have another question that you have a link for. As far as like technical difficulties in their classes or on their computer, where should they go to seek help for that? Okay. So another question that we get asked a lot is which browser works best for our technology. I'm sure Carolyn knows more than I do about this, but for me, I use Firefox. It's free. It does really well with Blackboard. I also teach online and I've taken some online classes and I love Firefox. So that's what I would vouch for. Does anybody have any experience with any other browser that they like or don't like?
Hey, Amber.
Yeah.
This is Pam. So can you tell me what it is you like about Firefox versus some of the other browsers? Do you just feel like the technology is better, or what makes you like it, I guess? That's my question.
I think for me, especially because I was teaching online, there at some browsers you use your classes, pieces of your classes you can't see or you can't access, but on Firefox, I never had any glitches like that. And whenever I'm working with my students online and they have problems with the learning platform, whatever it is, Blackboard or whatever we're using, I tell them to switch it up to Firefox and it always eliminates their issues.
Okay. I think I was telling you about this, but I have noticed, I can't remember who I was telling. So I was filling out the vaccination form and I was using Microsoft Edge and it wouldn't fill everything out. I switched to Google Chrome and it worked. And here's the funny thing. I was told, it's going to date me too, Carolyn, one time not to use Google Chrome because of the extension it put on the browser or something like, I can't remember exactly why the reason, but it was someone here at Wichita State said, do not use Google Chrome. I for years, I didn't use Google Chrome because of that. I'm starting to find that Chrome does work. What are your feelings, Amber, about Chrome versus Firefox?
I don't use it.
Okay.
I barely ever.
I only use Chrome.
Okay. Why do you only use Chrome, Carolyn?
The only thing I can say about this is, let me pull back a little bit and just say, if you are using Blackboard, do not use a Microsoft-based browser. So use Firefox or Chrome, or if you have a Mac product, you can use Safari. All of those are largely equivalent. If you're having some kind of weird problem, the very first technical, so Amira, you're getting this, share this with everyone you know. If you're having any kind of technical problem, the very first thing to do is just switch browsers and see if that fixes it. So just like Pam was saying, but in Blackboard, Microsoft browsers are not very compatible. And like Microsoft, remember Internet Explorer, it's terrible in Blackboard. Whole pages won't load and things. From the point of view of Chrome versus Firefox, just in the battle royale, I think it's more to do with how comfortable you are just in the interface. You get kind of comfortable, the X is over here instead of over here or whatever. And those kinds of things just make you, whatever you're more comfortable with, you're more likely to be more successful in. But from a quality perspective, those are both top shelf browsers.
All right, thank you for that.
But I wouldn't use Microsoft Edge for anything.
It defaulted once for me, and I hated it. And
okay, so I've got the link to the mindfulness thing. I've got the link to the Chromebook request. I've got a link to a MiFi request. I'm going to put a link to our whole remote learner program. We have a 4-step program for remote learners, for students, and this is the link to the top page. It goes through 4 steps: how to check your tech, what you need to know. It gives you links to classes to help you with computer stuff if you're needing to learn how to use a computer. And it steps you through each one of the processes to the end. I think that will be very helpful to people. And it contains those links as well. You had another question that I was going to go find one other thing about, and I've forgotten it, Amber. I'm sorry. What was it?
Asking for resources if they don't have Wi-Fi or a device.
Yeah, Wi-Fi and a device, both of those are there.
Okay.
I don't remember anything else.
I think that was it.
Okay.
Let's see. One of the other questions we wrote down, and we totally geeked out and started asking questions that we wanted to know.
I can give you one other thing too. I'm going to give you one
Yeah.
other thing.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask other questions. But
Okay.
I have one other. Everybody should just take these and just disseminate them widely, please.
Okay.
We also have a playlist of little how-to videos in Blackboard designed for students.
Yes.
These we try to link them in a variety of places, but we have 20 videos in it, and we have trouble getting these promoted because I work with faculty, and so I don't have the same footprint in students.
Okay.
So, but that's the playlist for a bunch of little training videos, just little things. How do you do this?
I'll see if we can't get those up on our Facebook page or something for you, Karen.
Yeah, that'd be great. And please feel free, anybody, to request them. We will make them purpose-built for a question.
Nice. Okay.
That would be helpful. Free downloads for software. Carolyn, can you go into what all students get when they're enrolled at WSU? I know that Microsoft is one of the products.
Mm-hmm. So Microsoft 365 products that's a whole suite of things that includes PowerPoint, it includes Word, it includes Excel. And those three things taken together, I think and it includes OneDrive. So it's a significant amount of storage. I'm not sure if it's a terabyte per student. I think it is. So it's just a lot of storage, which then follows you a couple of years after you leave that access. So that's helpful, as you kind of get started. But many of my students don't know that, or they hear it and they just don't ever do it because they're like, well, I have Word. It's worth taking the time to upload the 365 suite. Let me go get some stuff about that too.
Okay. I mean, I had already had Microsoft on my laptop, but I know that a lot of students did not have that. So it's definitely free, and it's a big resource. Otherwise, you're paying for the whole package.
Mm-hmm. If you need to have if you need to have the full Adobe Cloud, Creative Cloud for classes, or you just want to play with it, that would include Photoshop. It is not free, but it is $20 a month, which is a humongous discount over what it would be otherwise.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. There's also quite a bit of engineering software if you are an engineering student that is part of your program. And you do have, students do have access to remote access to high fancy computers for, big things if that's part of their program too. They have free access for that. It's hard for me to multitask, and so now I've forgotten what I'm going to look for. What was I looking for?
You were looking for downloads for Microsoft, Adobe.
Just the download page.
Yeah.
What you need to do, I think, is this page. This is the page this is the student resources page that is the ITS related resources. So each one of those links, I was cherry picking links out of this to make it easier for people, but really this is a big accordion and it has a question, and then you just click it and it opens up, and then it provides you more information, including links to areas that you can go to get more information.
This is the one we should bookmark.
Mm-hmm. This is, yeah. I mean, to me, it's valuable to get the actual link, So I was trying to give that, but it's like, every link you want has been on this page. I should give you this page.
I know that we have, as employees at WSU, we get a lot of training for like Microsoft, and we learn a lot from Allie, who teaches us. Do we have any tutorials or courses to help students get more familiar with Word or Excel or PowerPoint?
So We don't, but we do curate training that is generally available. So I just put a link in the chat about this. This is a page that talks about Microsoft training, and they direct students to LinkedIn Learning, which is an excellent place for training. There's no real reason for WSU to create it again because it's already there and it's available to us. So LinkedIn Learning has the added advantage that once you finish a course, then you get a little thing they call a badge, which you can put on your LinkedIn Learning profile so other people can see. It's a credential. You get a credential. And you didn't have to pay for it. So that's real valuable. Also, we do make the Microsoft Learning guides that are part of the instruction that we receive as employees. Those guides are available to students, and there's a link to those as well. There is some other training through the state of Kansas and others. So they've compiled all of that on this one page so that you can get to it. Plus, we have 3 classes that we put together for the Office of Adult Learning on computer basics. Just like, what if I don't know how to use a computer, and those are, I can provide the direct links for those, but those are here. Everything.
So those are more like basics, how to use a computer, how to use email, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we created those specifically for Wichita State students who are coming into this environment without those skills.
Yeah.
And we did that for you, Pam.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And my students appreciate it as well.
Yeah. So I can put the direct links to them, but a lot of links have been flying around here, but you'll notice one about 4 up, it says student training, remote learning, step 1.
Yeah.
There's a link to that. That is in step 1. We have links to those pages all together. So that's a place to find them too, but I will go ahead and put them in here too. This
Thank
one
you,
is
Carolyn.
Computer Basics. Did it not copy it? It did not. Here, let me find. This one is fine. This one is Getting Started with Computers, Computer Basics.
So, and can we share these? Because we like to
Absolutely. These are something that we created for anybody to use. This is the basics about files. These are little online classes, but they are free. They are, we tried to build them in a way that is intuitive, so you just click through.
Carolyn, do you find that we did have some questions about customizing Blackboard, and I guess some faculty members feel like students should know how to do that. Is that something that we should touch on? Is there a lot of customization happening in our classes?
I don't even understand the question. There's not a lot of customization that can be done.
Okay.
By a student. Maybe
in the grade book? Is that what I was wondering?
I wonder if instructors are asking students to upload pictures. Because you can upload an avatar picture. And Amira, if you are specifically having that problem, let's talk about it. But if not, then I'm hesitant to do it because we're about to, matter of fact, we really need to talk about Ultra. But we're about to change the way Blackboard looks. And when we get into the new way that it looks, it's going to be really easy to do that. It's going to be just right there. It's going to be like a link to your profile is right there. And you just go in and put in a picture.
One of the things I think that was brought up is that getting those notifications when a teacher uploads something or get them to make sure that students know how to get notified. Is there something you go in to turn on in Blackboard that your instructor has uploaded, or
Pam, if we are having that problem, you and I need to, or any of you guys that see that, can we talk about that? That's an instructor training issue. Okay. That's not a student training issue.
All right.
There's something that's an instructor training issue.
Gotcha. Okay.
When we go to the new way Blackboard looks, don't
Mhm.
let it freak you out, anybody in here. Being able to control your own notifications, how you want to get them, what device you want them to go to, when you want
Mhm.
them to come, will be almost infinitely modifiable for students.
Nice.
So it'll be really nice. And that's coming just in May.
Okay. Great.
Well, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to show you guys what
I want to
Ultra
see.
looks like, but only if Amira thinks it's useful. We're kind of here for you, and you've been so quiet. I don't know.
She may have had to go to class. I'm not sure. So she may have not forgotten to sign out. So,
well,
yeah.
okay. You guys want to see Ultra?
Yeah,
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
Everybody
We are
remain
recording
calm.
this. Everybody
Remain calm.
It's going to be fine.
Okay, so I think it's so useful to show them side by side. You know what Blackboard looks like, I know that, but I think it's just really useful to see them side by side.
Sure.
Oh, let's see, can you share, let me share?
Yes, I can. There you go.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. And everybody's gonna take a deep breath. This is what Blackboard looks like right now, right? When we come here, you can see all of this stuff before you log in, right? We're accustomed to that. That's what our landing page looks like. This is what our landing page won't look like this, but it will look more like this soon. Oh. So it's super streamlined. It's a cloud-based environment, so it's not very customizable, although we can drop some branding in. So it will say Wichita State. It may have one of those great big pictures just behind that takes the whole screen and this sitting on top of it, something like that. But it's going to be basically this with an ability for system announcements. These aren't customized course announcements. These are system announcements to be placed on this login page. You can understand why we would want to do that when we're having problems and things.
Yeah.
You wouldn't ordinarily see much here. I'm pushing a lot of stuff here now for our own nefarious purposes. So when you log in, then again, it will be branded. This is not a branded environment yet. So we will have a brand, we will have a WSU bar here. We will have the WSU seal here, but it will look like this. So it looks like this, and it's going to look like this, and it's going to look like that. Suddenly, the day, probably the Friday before commencement, we will bring down Blackboard and do this. And when it comes back, it'll look like this, and it'll never look like that again. So we're going to have to, if we are hosting any of your stuff on that My Institution page, we need to work with you on where to put it. And this is where your courses will have, you have two choices. You can see your courses in a list like this.
Oh, cool.
Or you can see them in a grid. And if you have them in a grid, they'll have a picture, and the picture will be associated to the course content. My office will be providing those pictures. Academic Creative Services, which is an office inside our office, will be providing those.
This layout right here, it kind of looks like Canvas.
It does. It's very similar to Canvas. It's a Canvas killer. It's got what Canvas has, plus it has more. So we're hoping that people like it. This is how you change you. You just you click on your name. This interface, everybody has all of this except for this admin link here. So everybody who has an account will have the same interface. You just click on your name, you just mouse over your picture, you click the thing just like Facebook or any place else. And not everything here will be changeable, obviously, because we won't want people to be able to change their student ID. So some of that's going to come in, get pushed, but you will be able to say things like, I have a nickname I prefer to be called, something like that. So there's a lot of things that you can do to customize that, but it's pretty different environment. Once we get into it, courses can have one of two looks. They can look like they look right now, or they can look like how they're going to look in the future. And that's going to be up to your instructor. So for about 1.5 years, students are going to have two different ways their courses will be looking. Some of them will look one way, some of them will look another. And we will be pushing out a lot of training for students on that.
So
A lot.
they'll do like the left pane navigation style.
Once you get in it, here, I can show you what a course in Ultra looks like. I should have just done that while I was in there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share again, go to courses. This is a course that I'm building out for our people who are piloting it. This is what a course looks like. Again, very like Canvas. We can add some artwork, and we will start working on ways to incorporate artwork. We're in a test environment right now, which has some limitations. You can put in emojis though. I haven't done that. But these are like, this is a clickable folder, and these are the things in the folder, right? So it's not, I think it's not unintuitive, but it's very, very, very different. If you look at, here's an example. Here's, I think, the best way to look at it. This is my current American government class that I taught in the Jan term. This is what it looks like created for Canvas or for Ultra, and just for fun. We won't go into it because it has student information in it, but I can show you the front page of it. This is what it looks like in current Blackboard. And this is what it looks like in Ultra. So
it's quite a bit different.
Yeah, it still has some stuff on this left side, but it's not going to orient you to the class. All the class stuff is in here. So it takes a while, and students are going to for sure be in both environments for a period of time.
Okay.
And that's in May.
Mm-hmm. In May, we'll go to that login difference. But for summer classes, it will be extremely unusual that you'd be in an Ultra class. So far as I know, there's just going to be one regular class, and it will be mine, and one badge class or 2 badge classes. In the fall, there will be a few, but those will be people who are piloting it. 35 instructors have agreed to pilot for fall. At this time, we're still taking people. And then for starting in spring of 2022, then there'll be a huge push, and they'll start going.
Cool.
Okay.
Very nice.
I feel like I've learned so much today. I had one more question that I had on my list. And you guys can feel free to ask questions too, but as far as the pandemic and, all the new changes here recently within the last year, how does test proctoring, how has that changed at all? Or if it has at all? Is there,
I feel like I'm sucking the oxygen out of the room, so I will wait if anybody else wants to address that, but I can address that.
Well, before it was just a couple courses that, for our online programs, we'd have a couple courses where the instructor requested proctoring, and not every class, but it did happen. And then I think that when everything switched for the pandemic, people were not wanting to pay for proctoring because that's not something that they signed up for. So I just wondered what changes, if any, have been made with proctoring.
The biggest change that was made at Wichita State as a result of the pandemic is the fact that we have acquired Respondus lockdown browser with Monitor. Respondus lockdown browser is a browser. So we were talking earlier about Firefox versus Chrome versus what. So Respondus lockdown browser itself is a browser that you download and you put on your computer. You go into it in order to access your class to take a test. You only use it to access your class to take a test. Otherwise, you always go to your test in Chrome or whatever you want. But when you go to take a test, you use this browser. What it does is it forces you to shut down everything on your computer except it. Won't let you take your class with anything on. And it won't let you, then it opens up a browser which doesn't allow you to have tabs, so you can't go out into the world to look things up. And it will open your test for you. The tests get password protected by the browser when you set it up. That's just part of, students don't need to worry about that, but that's what instructors do. They don't even set it, the browser sets it. And the browser then provides that password. It opens up the test, they take the test, and then they exit out. If the instructor turns on monitor, then it requires all of that plus a webcam and audio, a mic, and the software watches people take their exam. It isn't a human, but the software does. If the software sees the software's special algorithmy stuff, sees behaviors that it associates with cheating, like a lot of looking away or talking to someone off camera or hearing clicking, whatever, seeing a phone, it'll flag it. And then the instructor has the ability to go back and see the portion of that time that was flagged to themselves see whether or not that was reasonable. If some kid comes in and says, "Mom, when are we going to have dinner?" And she's like, "I'm taking a test," then the instructor can see and go, "No, that was not cheating. That was multitasking." And I'm going to give her 5 points extra credit for that. But that's what Monitor does. Monitor is not a requirement. Those are it's a subset of Respondus Lockdown Browser. Instructors can turn it on or choose not to. Monitor is paid for separately, and currently we've used a lot of it. We are only going to be able to support some of it going forward, and over time we'll probably see Monitor go away, but I would bet we'll keep Respondus Lockdown Browser, which does all of the other things, helps to discourage cheating behavior in classes. We also have seen an explosion of people using Zoom to proctor. So if you were my student, I might ask you all to turn on your camera, and we're just going to be quiet while everybody takes their test. And I'm going to, I'm not going to stare at you. I'll probably do other things, but I'm looking around. I can answer questions, and I can look and see if it looks like people are like, kind of like in a classroom, a physical classroom. Of course, this is a classroom.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it is.
We should have been doing that all along, kind of. Do you think that we'll continue to do that after the pandemic?
That's a baby's face question, Amber. The baby has a face which informs the adult it will be. And I don't know if that's one of the things. I mean, I really hope that we get to a place where we're doing a lot of things to support people's learning, right? Cheating doesn't support people's learning.
Right.
So there are a lot of ways for us to support people's learning and discourage then cheating behaviors that proctoring is part of it. Zoom proctoring could be part of that, but there are other things too. And I'd like to see that we'll probably be going toward a lot of solutions.
Yeah. Wow. And so that kind of eliminates the cost of having your test proctored.
Proctor you, right, yeah. So there's no cost to the student for those.
Great.
That's already been incurred by the university. The Office of Online Learning actually paid for that.
Very nice.
And my office pays for another piece of software that students don't see, but supports the whole thing. It's also made by Respondus, called Respondus 4.0, and it allows instructors to create tests for Blackboard using Microsoft Word, and then it fixes it, packages it all up, puts it into Blackboard for them. And so it makes that process a lot easier too. So I think those two things together, we should be seeing more digital assessment, which is really student friendly.
Great.
Good.
See, I'm glad I asked. I had no idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
this is fun.
That's all the questions that I had written down. Amira, did you have anything else that you were wondering about or had any comments? Because we're all here for you.
I think Amira actually went to another class. So
split.
yeah. I just don't think she was able to log out or whatever. So.
Well, I'm glad they joined.
Yes. Very good.
And we are recording this, so I will also put this out on our website. Noelle, did you share our website in the chat? If you haven't, can you please do that? Because we do a lot of stuff on, how to organize for the semester and things that help students that are online. So we have a lot of tips and tricks on that. And Carolyn, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Sure. I do actually want to leave you with something.
Okay.
Leave you with a thought. And it is anytime you find yourself, from a student perspective or from, any of our perspectives, anytime you find yourself thinking, oh my gosh, how come we don't have this support? How come we don't have this resource? How come we don't, we make my particular office a first stop on that.
Okay.
We may already have it. One thing, a lot of our student resources aren't well known. We may be able to just with our own expertise, because we are the Blackboard people, be able to create it. It doesn't have to be a Blackboard question, but just in general. But we partner with so many offices now. Like we partnered with you, Amber, on the creation of an inclusion page. We just have we know what's getting done in a lot of different offices, and we can leverage that to get things done.
Awesome.
So if there's especially a student-facing resource that you think is necessary, we want to help with that.
Good to know. Well, thank you all for taking the time and joining.
Sure, good to talk to you guys. It was fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad Space.
Carolyn, yeah, great job today.
Yes, wonderful.
Right.
Good. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
You can tell we don't get out and talk to a lot of humans anymore.
I know. I greet people, strangers in the grocery store. Hi. I know it was this. Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.